Welcome in. For everyone who doesn't know, this is TN Toward Night. You put, I noticed, I'm going to change this real quick. When you don't have to have it as a URL, a space in the name there, not as towards space night. And I wanted to just kick things off with, I normally, when I've done this in the past, I will start by asking a guest, what is your, if you had to give a couple minute summary, what's your kind of origin story? Where you from? Where you grow up? How'd you get to where you are? As much or as little detail as you want to share on that. Go for it.
Gotcha. So was born and raised in Queens, New York. As far as musically, started around like my late teens and very kind of like, looking back now compared to like my discipline now, it feels like half-assed. It felt like it was more therapeutic than like a skill that I was like working on, if that makes sense. It was more like to get an idea out. So it was more like learning music was something that backed up my lyrics. And I wrote since I was younger than that. So for many years, like I delved it more into like making like what I'd call more like on the rock, even ballad side, like everything almost other than like hip hop,
Yeah.
Tried my hand at a few like rap songs, but never considered myself a rapper. And kind of just like went on and off with that for years, got into like recording engineering and kind of sidetracked from doing that so that I can record my own stuff and into more like recording other people. So I did that for a bit. And then the most recent jump was this whole like, getting introduced to Harry Mack, getting inspired by freestyling. And then the funny thing is that like me, as far as like starting my journey, it started in the most like silly way, which was like the Ducks and Peppers thing in a way.
Right.
That was like part of it. There was a point where in Harry Mack's Discord, there were mad like Duck versus Pepper verses being typed back and forth, right? And then that eventually went into me deciding to just spit one on my phone, like the most like shitty recording. I don't know if I could say shitty, but now I just said it twice.
Yeah, go for it.
And then just putting it up and people loving it and like giving like a positive reaction. And it just kind of like went from there. I was like, oh wait, people would like to hear me rap. Okay. Started practicing freestyling, and then that became its own little obsession, and it's where we are now.
Right on. When was that when you first encountered that community and started?
It's actually a year ago. Like a year ago is where like I joined Discord, and it's actually when I started like or I think tomorrow or today actually is exactly a year from the first time that I sat with a random generator and like struggled like to get past like even 4 lines without stumbling. Like I actually recorded myself, with a generator trying to freestyle. Mad frustrating. Went for like maybe an hour tops before I was like, F this, and stopped for like a few days and then tried it again and then kept going at it.
How many days have you done in a row now?
Today was number 114.
114 days. And I think, anything you have some level of discipline in, you're gonna see improvement and results in that time. What's it been like for you? Have you found it easy? Have you found it difficult to be consistent for those 114 days? And for those people who might not know, what is it exactly that you've done 114 days in a row at this point that we're talking about?
So at the bare minimum, and there have been times, not a lot, but there have been times when I've done just the bare minimum of just like the 7 exercises. So there's 7 exercises that I try to do at the very least. And that enough satisfies a practice session. Most of the time it goes at least for an hour because I like to stay extra and just do words from the chat. A lot of the times it ends up being like a 2-hour, 3-hour stream. But at the very least for me to allow it to count as a practice session, I have to get through 7 specific rhyming exercises.
Right.
As far as being easier or harder, there were definitely times where I'd wake up and be like, like, why did I get myself on this streak thing? Now there's this pressure of keeping up the streak. And at the end of the day, I would always be thankful. There was never a time where I did it and then I was like, oh, I still hate it. It was always like, well, I'm glad I did that, and now I have one more number. And eventually just started reaching a point where it became sort of its own thing, because it's funny, man, because like this small little thing of like a streak kind of became the focus so much that it helped on those days where I probably would have been like, I don't feel like it, and I would have let a day pass and
Right.
another day pass, and I'm glad I didn't, because I kind of like shoehorned my future self into like, all right,
Hmm.
buddy, you
This is
got
what you do.
this got this streak. Yeah, you got to try to go for at least a year now. So it kind of helps, like those moments where you wake up and you're like, I don't feel like doing anything. It's like, shut the fuck up, get up, and like you
It's a
just
lot
have to
of
do
the
7 songs.
the
Yeah,
habit building too that a lot of people find with other types of exercising, physical, etc.
yeah.
When people get into that rhythm, go into the gym or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, Behind you, you've got some instruments, and I've seen them on your stream before. You mentioned
Mhm.
playing other styles of music before.
Yeah.
What's your favorite instrument to play personally?
Guitar. I
Hmm.
mean, it was. I feel bad saying that because I haven't touched the damn thing. I mean, I touched it a few weeks ago, but
Hmm.
like aside from like moving it from my place and rearranging or whatever, like they've gotten very, very since like the freestyling thing, they've gotten like very little action, and it's a weird psychological thing. I don't know. I don't know why I've been, because I used to just at random just pick up the guitar and play,
Right.
and I
That's
feel like
funny. I've
almost
done the same
subconsciously,
thing.
yeah. Like subconsciously, my brain almost was like, "No, we don't want to go into that world again just yet. We're gonna get sucked up into it." I don't know what it
Mm.
is. I think something like that, but it's eventually it's gonna come like kind of full circle, because ultimately the goal is like the master plan
Hmm.
is to one day be able to do the thing where like, so I got like a drum set that I'm slowly putting together, electronic drum set. The
Hmm.
end goal, the dream is to be able to just do the loop,
Hmm.
set a drum beat, loop it, play a guitar part over it, loop it, do
Right.
something on the keyboard, and just do the whole thing, loop it, and then spit over that. Because as like beats, even though there's not like numerous beats out there, they start to get the world starts to get a little smaller, and you start to find
Yeah.
yourself spitting over the same stuff. You can't do stuff with it because of copyrighted stuff.
Hmm.
So there's so many problems that would solve.
Right. I feel that as well. Does I don't know for you. For me, I was used to before I was doing as much rapping, as much poetry. It used to be I would almost all the time, almost every day, I'd pick up guitar and I'd maybe just a song that I was liking on the radio or something. I would just learn something. I didn't even do a ton of my own songwriting on guitar when I played it. I just like sitting there for half an hour and being like, oh, that was fun. Now I know how to play that song that's been stuck in my head.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but do you ever, you've done some releases as well,
Mhm.
and do you have much of a distinction right now as far as how you identify between like freestyler you and artist you in other contexts, or is everything you release more or less the result of those freestyle sessions? How do you approach that?
Well, as far as the stuff that's come out, it's been definitely just from the freestyle
Yeah.
world. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, the first. It's weird because the first album I made pretty much all except for one of the beats. So there was that, that what I had been doing from years before was
Mm-hmm.
just making and putting songs together and like doing stuff with MIDI. And I think I just didn't play guitar in it, but I played keys on it for
Mm-hmm.
certain things. So that played a role just in the musicianship of it. But as far as me as an artist, that's actually a great question, because I think there is a big distinction, because anything that I did write before this freestyle rap thing was so much more on the melancholy, like super introspective, like things that I still want to do and I still feel, but it was such a opposite from like kind of more the hip hop, like I'm overcoming obstacles, and I'm doing like this kind of like more bravado-ish, more like proud, more like I'm conquering things
Mm.
type of tone that the new Towards Night has taken, and like, and the other weird thing is that Towards Night was always supposed to be a band name. It was never supposed to be like me.
Mm-hmm.
I was always just going to go by my name, and then going on Discord, people were calling me TN, obviously, because
Mm-hmm.
that was my name. And then when I was putting stuff out, I was like, all right, I I'm that. So there was definitely like a whole different world,
Right.
be pre and post freestyle Tours Night,
And
BC and 18.
since you mentioned it, The name was originally meant to be for a band. Where's the idea come from? What's the concept of Towards Night, either for you or its original meaning for the band?
So there were a few different ideas. It was always just like kind of like a poetic thing that people can interpret. So like one interpretation I had was I just loved the night, and I always felt like the night itself was like, and this is like super, could potentially sound pompous, like teenager poetic type stuff. But for me, like the night was like this magic time that was like almost a place of its own. It wasn't just.
Well,
a
you do
time
have
of
a
the day.
Batman shirt on, so
Yeah. So I was always a lover of the night. You know what I mean? So it was almost like, I think at that time it was because I was doing so much of the nightlife thing and actually like going out to bars and socializing and doing that and just having great experiences in that like nighttime realm where things just kind of seemed to be like their own place. It felt like I was always going towards night. But then there were like, it was the kind of thing where I wrote that down and I was like, oh, that's cool. That's one thing. And then I also was like, oh, and I also know that night is like one of the early like primordial goddesses connected to like chaos and order. So there's like the idea of like going towards night in that sense. And then ultimately it was also similar to like how Nine Inch Nails, like Trent Reznor just loved the way that Nine Inch Nails looked. So there was that aspect where I was like, oh, I also like the way it looks. So, it's still open to interpretation for anybody, but there was never like a specific, like, this is exactly what towards night means. It was just a phrase that I was like, oh, I connect with that. And then I found little things that were meanings for it.
I like that.
I like you.
Thank you, and thank you, and thank you. I just want to say thanks to the chat as well. I see people gifted subs. You're very kind. And yeah, if you guys have questions, feel free to get them in.
I wasn't even looking at the chat because I'm paying attention to Petra. But now I see that somebody said F Batman. How do you ban here? Can you ban from here?
Yeah, let's get it out of here, Ricochet.
Can guest ban? Or...
Who knows? What's right now for you? You're obviously going to continue your daily sessions. You said currently is a year the goal currently, and then it may just continue on, or you don't know.
Yeah, honestly, I like to continue it as long as possible because, like, seriously, at the end of the day, there's almost no excuse unless, like, knock on wood, I'm in a coma.
Right.
It's seven. At the end of the day, like, I'd rather not do the minimum each time, but like, something would have to be really wrong for me to not have a time for like a 35, 40 minute thing if it had to be that short where I just did 7 exercises and I'm out. So it's the kind of thing where now it's like it's become such an anchor that I'd like to continue it as much as possible. I'm just setting 365 as like, bro, you got to at least hit 365. I'm talking to my future self when I say bro.
Outside of freestyles and the consistency with that, what do you see you wanting music to be for you going forward, maybe over the next few years, whether that's freestyling or anything else?
So I want freestyling to continue definitely, and it's the weird thing about freestyling too is that I guess I left this out from the beginning is that during like the earlier stage, writing was always kind of a secondary thing. I loved improvising things, so many ideas came from like getting on the guitar and just jamming something out, and like I didn't have the freestyle mind back then, so I would sometimes just mutter words or things that sounded like stuff, and I'd go back and I'd replace it with like actual lyrics. So this whole freestyle thing kind of made me realize that was kind of my motion to begin with, and I just never realized it and never really worked that out. So I think continuing that, both like not just from on a rap perspective, but just any kind of music, I think that's going to be a process even for written albums. So the next written album that happens, even if I sit down and I write the lyrics, I know it's going to be born first by like improv sessions, and as far as like where I want things to go future, I do want to focus more on like putting out albums, and also just thematically getting into like deeper things that I think I've been avoiding because I felt like my skill wasn't there to do them justice. So, a lot of what I've done so far has been very typical, almost like TN's gonna kill the mic and like, like that kind of like general, like almost like braggadocious stuff,
Right.
and more like light subject and not talking about like political and spiritual and philosophical things, which I think about constantly. It's just I think now I'm starting to feel a little bit more like, okay, I can start messing with those and not feel like I'm totally, being sacrilegious or blasphemous, or not doing it justice.
What for you? What kind of artists, maybe in the past or now, do you feel have approached that side of their lyrics or their art in a good way, or that you are inspired by or look up to as far as some of those more serious topics? Is there anyone that comes to mind?
I would say Trent Reznor. Trent Reznor, I feel like Trent Reznor had a very similar thing where his early stuff was very much like expressing therapeutic stuff, like his angst and like his like melancholy stuff and his just like dealing with life. And I think that was kind of like the subject matter for me early on. And then he kind of had this interesting move. It wasn't like huge, but when he did it, I think really well and really sincerely, where he started to get more like social minded and more political.
Right.
But I'd like to also have a little bit more humor and flexibility in my stuff than Trent. Like, I think that's where one thing where Trent, not in a bad way, but Trent is very like, there's
In that lane, the
very
tone.
specific lane. Yeah, yeah.
Welcome
Whereas
into the new people, by the way, rated through. Normally you'd be getting freestyles and all, but we're doing a podcast today, interviewing a fellow freestyler and artist here towards night. So welcome
What's
in,
up, Raider?
welcome in. We'll be back to doing some live songwriting and freestyles tomorrow. So feel free to follow along if that's interesting. But thank you, Sahana Arts for coming in. Good to see new people. Good to see old people as well. I mean, some of the old people, I could take them or leave them. No, I'm just kidding. Ash says, Raiders, this guy is a prolific knitter. Ask him questions. Knitting questions. Hey, it's a good segue. What kind of things do you fill your time with outside of the music? What other kind of hobbies do you have? Do you have time for other hobbies?
These days, I kind of haven't. It's been very much like work, stream, review streams for just education purposes. Like I like to watch them back to get like a clip if there's like potentially a clip that is useful. But also to just kind of like keep an eye on myself and be like, okay, what are you doing too much, or what do you need to improve on? So like, and usually I'm able to like overlap that with work, but then it's also been just like following up on certain streamers, and just kind of doing stuff that normally, hopefully one day in the future I have like a team doing. So it's been a lot of time spent on the artist TN, as a, from
Right.
like a graphic design and like,
The brand.
social media and all that stuff. Yeah. So, aside from that, time with my son whenever we could, and there's a few shows that I watch, but once things kind of settle down, I do want to get back into, I used to play basketball a lot. And I think I really need, like, now's the time where I really need to also like, I've developed, I think like a nice like ritual or whatever, that's been really helpful for me, just even therapeutically. Like it's been like this, it's become this anchor. But I think now it's time to introduce like things like physical exercise and
Right.
kind of making that a routine as well. So basketball, I think would be the answer, except it's just not currently the answer. But maybe in a few weeks that'll be the answer. And then video games, but that also will be something that I want to do. I just haven't had the time for it. But no knitting. I'm sorry to say, no knitting.
That's gonna be a disappointment for, well, one person in the chat. Everyone else,
Yeah,
I think, is gonna
yeah,
be fine
pretty
with
much.
that. All right, let's address this. Other side of the track says, I think most hip hop subject matter is formulaic, either misogynistic or I am smart and this is how you should live. J. Cole, Kendrick, etc. What's your initial reaction to that?
That most hip hop does that. I mean, it's hard. It's saying that most of anything is kind of hard because it's such a wide selection. Maybe most of the stuff. I don't know if they mean that most of the stuff that's like that gets played and gets like airtime is that? And if so, I would say that sure, like traditionally maybe that was the case, but I think less so now. But yeah, I'm not sure if I'm like missing the question as far as like, is that how the culture has been, or is that like just
I don't know.
a product?
I think that this. I think it's kind of a oversimplification. I mean, also I think it's kind of wild to. Maybe I'm missing the order of chat, but basically there's a statement of Kendrick telling the same type of stuff. It's formulaic. I think that's kind of hard to argue over a discography. But regardless of any particular artist, I feel like maybe those are subjects that are overcovered in hip hop, but I think every genre has them, and what becomes the most popular has to kind of play to not always the lowest common denominator, but the easiest subject matter to digest for the most people. It kind of be like saying that all punk is the same, and like no one's really doing anything in punk because all the lyrics are about rebelling or like non-conforming. It's like, okay, but that's really kind of taking the most like kind of distilled down form of what's going to be easy for people to understand, or that pop singer-songwriters only have breakup songs or something like that. It's I don't know. It's, to me, that kind of doesn't quite ring true, because I think also you have a lot of people who even can be the type of artists who have a couple of songs that get popular and fit those stereotypes. Those very same artists can have a lot more depth in the topics they write about, even on the same albums and EPs that these songs are coming from. And maybe they just don't get as much attention. I mean, you look at, so I think a really good example would be Lorde, who years ago, I think it was Pure Heroin was their first album, and Royals was, played everywhere all the time. And even there's actually some lyricism in that's goes a little deeper, but also like that is a very like almost overly artistic artist, to where like there's a lot of things going on in her songwriting and stuff, but obviously that's like the catchy song that was on the radio most at the time or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know the rock and roll has more topics. I don't know if it has more topics.
I don't think so. I mean,
think pretty much all music is storytelling and comes from the life of the songwriter, and I mean, pretty much everyone has any genre has as much a diverse like life as any other, it feels like.
Yeah, and I mean, like the comment afterwards, like there's definitely a rap out there with storytelling, and there's rap that's introspective, and I think now could the argument be made that people might like lift up those things that are more misogynistic or more like violent or more whatever. Yeah, but like you said, that's kind of, I think, can be found in any genre.
For those of you who don't know, or maybe you're listening or watching this later, we have a in the Twitch live stream chat as we're doing this, a little debate going on about the breadth of topic in various genres of music, and there's some disagreement, and I agree with the disagreement, but I also think that I'm gonna have to put an overlay with the chat on the next podcast episode. Or if you're hearing this, twitch.tv/Petravita Music, be here for the next one. Get in on it live. Be part of the debate.
Drop a follow and a sub.
Yeah, that's right.
So I realized that this probably came from me saying that, subject wise, it's been more in the like, I'm killing the mics and whatever. So maybe that's where it sprung, and I do think that hip hop has that thing of like a rapper's voice tends to be one of like, of bravado, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in a misogynistic or an attacking kind of way, but more in a, like, I believe in myself and I'm overcoming stuff, right? Which leaves room for an artist to be able to touch on something that's introspective and deep and whatever, but just take it from a point of view of, like, instead of where a rock singer might go more of like the, oh, this is hurting me and I'm upset by this and this is painful route, and that thing, a rapper might be more on the of like, yo, this is a situation that's going on, things are hard, it's stuff that's making me sad, but F that, you know what I mean? Like, this is what I'm doing about it, like I think that's where hip hop, if we had to like generalize, I think that's what makes hip hop's voice a little different, in that there's more of a, like, rising above, like, mentality, where that's what I really meant by braggadocious, like,
what I think as well, that we need to, that is really important to this debate, is the fact that hip hop is mainstream. Hip hop has been mainstream music culture for multiple decades at this point, to where that is the most prominent genre. And so if you have a genre that is disproportionately making up a larger part of the songs that are heard in general, be it airplay, stream numbers in shows, popular culture, movies, etc., used as soundtracks, obviously the tropes from that specific genre are going to seem more prominent, even if proportionally within the genre they aren't as overrepresented as you might think. Because if you look at top 40 or whatever, and you're saying, damn, there's 10 different genres or 5 different genres represented here, but like half the songs are hip hop, well, obviously you're going to hear a lot more of the tropes that are coming from that genre than any other. I think it would be the flip if we were in 90s light contemporary rock, pop, or whatever, and all of a sudden it was all those types of sounds, and we were wondering why it was, every song only uses steel string guitar and it's so overused, and can they use any other instrument besides a steel string guitar, but that would just be because that's more of the songs overall that are being played, not necessarily because that's all that genre has to offer.
Very true. Very true. Case dismissed.
Yeah, case dismissed.
Done.
But so I think that's one thing to think about as well there. Getting away from genre to genre and back to you, I think I know we just had a more in-depth discussion, but I think that now I'm going to even go for a harder hitting question, which is your hair constantly changing lengths, or do you simply put it in different configurations, or have it in your hat and a ponytail? Because I swear sometimes I see videos and I'm not sure if you've like cut it off or cut it short, or if there's just something, and then all of a sudden it's back. So I gotta know what's going on. I think the people want to know as well.
So it's long on the top, and I have that freaking undercut thing because I am a textbook Pisces, and textbook to the point where half of me thinks all that stuff is bullshit, and the other half is like, oh, maybe there's something to it. So the Pisces side of me is like, well, maybe sometimes I want to put a hat on and have that shaved part. I just like the feeling of the shaved part, and then the other part's like, yeah, but maybe I want to have long hair, and I'm like, you know what? I have a solution for both of you. So that's what's been going on. It's basically long on top. And then sometimes I go through the trouble of like tucking the damn thing and doing some kind of trick to fit it into the hat. And sometimes I'm like, fuck this. I'm like late already for the stream, and just throw it in a ponytail and then put a hat on it. And I'm overdue for like, this needs to get shaved. But yeah, my hair is constantly growing in length, or it's constantly different lengths, I guess.
Well, I can rest easy finally solving that mystery though. That's a wrap. That was worth having you on for.
That's all I was here for. You could have just DM'd me. I would have told you.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, it's all good in chat. Make sure we keep it respectful with each other. We can have our debates, um, hair length related or genre, lyrical topic saturation. Either way.
Yeah.
Um, what's your I would say a have you had a in your, let's say, freestyling or just music career so far, what you're building and what you've been doing, any kind of moments that have been highlights? Could have been something that happened on stream or off stream, someone reaching out to collab or anything like that that kind of jumps out at you.
I think if I would have to, the biggest highlights have been more like personal things where like certain people, and there's been a few people actually, both within the community and even like, somebody that I didn't know from the community, somebody who I knew from real life, was being told that seeing me do my thing led to them being inspired. Which I know is not specifically about my journey and like, something like I performed and people were like, oh, that was awesome. But it's been more about like just the just the discipline and like the growth and all that. I've gotten people tell me that they started streaming because they saw me streaming and they were inspired. My best friend was like ready to give up on music, and like not rap anymore and not do anything, music related at
Yeah.
all. And seeing what I was doing inspired him. He was the guy that was on yesterday. He's the engineer. And he's working on an album right now, released 2 singles.
Right on.
So that kind of thing of like, because I was inspired by this community, by Harry Mack, by, shout out Mel Cooper. Like she was one of the most like vocal ones who was like, yo, your shit is dope. Like your cadence is dope. Like, and that was like just that one person like saying that early on before I even like really
Right.
put out like little spurts of stuff made such an impact. So then for that to branch out into like other people being like, yo, like I'm doing this and that because I saw you do that and it really motivated me. That's been like the biggest thing because one of the ultimate goals, aside from just being able to get out my ideas and like all the stuff that I kind of used music for early on, which was more therapeutic, the bigger goal has always been to make some kind of change or affect people somehow. So like that's been like the most direct way, like literally seeing somebody like, oh shit, you're streaming now and you're making moves in that direction or you're making out like albums now, has been definitely like the biggest moment.
Right on.
But yeah, but if you're asking me like performance wise, I'd say recently I've been feeling really good because I've managed to do streams without cursing, and that's been a huge deal for me.
Yeah, I don't think I can do
Ricochet
that.
loves it. Yeah, like Ricochet always like sends me messages and says, "I love it when you keep it clean in your streams. I hate rap that has curses in it." So it's really just
Sorry, Ricochet.
no for anybody not watching the stream that is sarcasm. Ricochet hates that I don't curse, but yeah, that if we had to take it from like, what have you done performance wise that felt like like a great moment. I think lately just being able to like get through like hours of rapping and like not say curse word, it has just felt, I know that might sound like very simple and very, I don't know, but like it's more about just how far I've come that I like I can do that and not have that filter of
Right.
the curses that I've had for so long, that something I've been really effing proud of.
Yeah.
Effing, not fucking.
What's going forward from here? What in the just like the next just weeks, month, couple of months? Do you have anything coming up that you want to tell people about?
The biggest thing that's kind of like taken over everything else has been this TNN guests series,
Yeah.
which I'm trying to just like book as much, which I know it might be kind of nuts because I'm booked right now until I think September.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is nuts, but at the same time, like I'm just thinking of future TN and being like, dude, I don't want him to go through the thing of like scrambling every
Last
few
minute,
weeks to,
yeah.
like, are you there, so I'm just trying to fill that up at least until the end of the year and get that filled. Once I get that filled and that kind of has like its momentum or whatever, I could start putting energy towards a written album, which I was going to
Yeah.
keep secret. and I'm still going to keep a secret because I'm not setting a freaking deadline like I did with the first album, which was nuts, and I don't regret it, but I'll never do that ever again.
It's okay. No one will watch this.
Yeah, no setting a deadline. No, like, I'm not even going to tell people like, oh, it's coming. I'm just going to finish the damn thing and then just one day put it out. Yeah.
It's so hard to do. I mean, for me, it's like, it always is like, yeah, that's a smart thing. And at the same time, when if I like something enough that I know I'm going to put it out, it's hard to not want to share and tease it or tell people about it, because you wouldn't be like excited to put it out if you weren't also excited enough to want to share it with people and breadcrumb the trail a little bit.
Yeah. I'm anticipating that, so I'm hoping like this discipline that's been building up will kick in and be like, no, motherfucker, just stop, just do a Beyonce, just one Beyonce, just once, minus the videos.
Right. Yeah. You're not gonna have the whole Lemonade visual album drop in a day.
No.
Eventually, you never know. But that no is exactly what someone would say who's planning yes. So who knows? We can't really be sure.
I could definitely say knitting is not in the future. Just to get that out there once again.
No knitting. Okay.
No knitting. Yeah.
Interesting. Man, I've always thought about. So I used to do a lot of close-up magic, like in college years, and so it was always like a great thing. I mean, when I first moved to England, it was a great icebreaker. It's how a lot of people ended up knowing me and made a lot of friends there. As I would do card magic, coin magic, all that kind of stuff, and I always had, and I've worked on it at different points, and then I've been like, it's too much to practice that. But I've always been fascinated by kind of unique ways to combine different artistic pursuits. And so one of the things I've workshopped in the past is, a spoken word piece about two lovers using a king and a queen always coming back to the top of the deck, or in keeping control of those, and some sort of performance that can be choreographed with with cards. And I bring that up because I say, is there any, you said I don't really plan on doing that right now. We're talking about some of the visual aspect, or dropping a big surprise thing, or knitting and hip hop crossover, but is there anything you've ever thought that might be kind of a very like unique juxtaposition of hip hop and some other art, or just music combined with something else? Even if it kind of seems like logistically, I'm not sure how I'd actually do that. Is there anything like that ever crossed your mind?
One thing has been, I feel like I'm going to get big into cooking, like big into cooking. Like I feel like I'm going to start like learning, like, I know some basic stuff, but cooking. I have such a long journey to go, but like, I know that I have a feeling that once I go on that journey of like beyond the basics of what I know right now, that I'm really going to get into it. And I found myself, like, I found myself in the kitchen, like preparing stuff and being like, starting to like logistically figure out, well, how would I do this? Like on a live stream where I can like rap over what I'm doing while I'm doing it, So there's a lot of little things like that where it's like, oh, this common thing that I'm doing that I can still do and still like have my mouth running the whole time. How could I incorporate that? Because I think it's kind of interesting when you're able to do that well, like able to do two things at the same time that are interesting. And I think freestyling is perfect for that, because you don't have to pre-write anything for it. And you're literally
Tian is going to master beans on toast in the chat. But can you cook without cursing? That's a good question from Ricochet.
Maybe not the first few times, because I probably like make so many mistakes. But I've gotten better at the no cursing thing, man. It's not as hard as I thought. The first few hours were like hard, and then after a while, I was like, "Yo, this is actually great." Like, I hate to break to Ricochet, but my boy, like one big thing was like my boy was like, "Yo, some of your verses sound like riddens when you don't curse," and that just being told that by like a hip hop head, because this hip hop head was like. Was just the little thing that I needed. That I was like, that's like ringing in my brain right now. So it's almost like somehow that got it into my brain and it's in there right now, just knocking out every curse that tries to come out, because it's such a dopamine burst. That's my little figurative allegory. There's a little guy in there just punching all the curses out. And he was born by what my friend said. I hope that makes sense.
I love it. That's the the manifestation of that. He's there to just
Exactly. Yeah.
keep it out, huh?
He's like, yo, E said this sounds like a written when we don't curse. Come here, F word.
Yeah.
Don't get into that line. So
I've got a couple people in chat have said, when is the towel merch coming? I'm here for the towel merch. Tell us about that. What's going on with the towel merch? Is this just from wiping sweat on streams, the towels become a thing? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a sweater. I sweat easy, often, a lot, profusely.
Yeah.
And so that I'm not just dripping throughout the whole stream, I've just made sure that I always have a towel with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Goat Music was the first one to be like luckiest towel on the planet. And now apparently surprisingly there's not a request for me to knit towels. So at least those are kept separate.
Yeah.
But maybe now I open up a can of worms.
Right.
I don't know if I'm gonna do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
maybe I will
see if we can get some custom towels made up at some point.
Maybe Shroud of Turin type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be like my face. Yeah.
That was most of what I had kind of had planned specifically, but is there anything that you want to kind of leave people with, or just or put these people in their place in chat? Either way.
Listen, all right, I have some Festivus. All right, we're gonna air all the grievances right now.
Yeah.
No, I mean, any chance I get, I wanna make sure, and I think sometimes I've been so focused on my stuff that I don't say it enough. I try to say it through every stream, but like one thing at the top of the list is just like thank you, like huge gratitude. Like this community has, it's crazy how much has happened just by entering this community. Like my life changed remarkably. There was so much stuff that I was going through at the time too, so like it helped me as a person to leave, like because I was like pretty much fresh off the 4 years of like Trump presidency, being on Facebook, fighting with strangers almost daily. Like I went through that I was one of those people just like on the internet responding to people that I should never have been responding to, like, and just lived in that world for almost those 4 years. And then to have like this flip opposite of this community that's like somehow they've managed to get a collection on the internet of people where it's not toxic and it's loving and it's encouraging and it's fertile. Like it's like stuff grows there, so just huge thank you for that. And then on top of that, I would just say that like, as cliche as it sounds, like practicing and really going for stuff, like it does pay off. It seems it's so funny because like after I started doing like the streaks of practices and like it became like weeks and weeks and I started noticing big jumps, I'd go, oh shit, practicing a lot really helps, which is such a dumb thing because like you've been told that your whole
of course, life,
right? You know what I mean?
Right.
So it seems like a very logical thing, but it doesn't when you first started. When you first started, you're like, all right, I practiced today and I practiced, the next day and blah, blah, blah. It's not really making a big jump. I don't see big changes. This is bullshit. It's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
No, you keep doing it. It is like it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's going to happen. So it's just a matter of just determination and knowing if you know what you want to do and you love it, like, just be a bulldozer and keep going, like be protective of that dream by fighting for it. And sometimes you have to fight yourself. So I'm trying not to be preachy, so I'll stop it there. But like sometimes it's your own self that gets in the way. So I would just say, don't get in your own way. Like whatever you love, go after it fiercely. And stop asking me to knit. Thank you.
I love that. You know what I think of all the time? You guys remember when you're a kid and there was probably like a math problem in grade school where you were, something like you could have $100,000 or you can have a penny that doubles every day for 30 days or something, and everyone's like, I don't know, and then you're like, oh shit, it's like $3 million or something, $4 million or something by the end of that. I think about a lot that that kind of rule of things and how it can apply to practicing. And even if you're really conservative in practicing something and you think that you're doing so poorly in your practicing that you're only 1% better each day, you're really not going to notice that 1%. But in a couple months, 3 months, you're going to be twice as good as you were when you started. And
Yeah.
if you're twice as good again 6 months from your starting point, and you're 4 times in 8, and you go by that same kind of path,
Yeah.
that very quickly, you're just leaps and bounds beyond someone who never started 2 years ago when you were hemming and hawing about whether you're going to do it or not.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Perfect.
I think what you're doing is awesome. I love it.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah,
Likewise.
of course. Well, I look forward to talking more sometime. This was fun. I know we got a couple months still till I'm scheduled for yours, but we'll be flipping the script a little bit. For your podcast eventually, and
Yes.
yeah,
Looking forward to it, man. And thank you in advance.
Yeah, thanks so much for being around. I'm gonna go ahead and hang up and just debrief real quick with stream, and then pass the love on. You've already done you're not streaming right now.
I'm actually gonna
I'd come right
premiere
over, raid your
yesterday's.
ass.
Oh no, yeah, I'm gonna be premiering
That's all right.
yesterday's TNN guest thing on YouTube, and then
Hell yeah.
if there's time tonight, I'll jump on Twitch.
After we hang up, drop a link to your YouTube in the chat for us so that people can go over there and hit up the premiere if they want and they haven't been there yet.
Oh, awesome! Thank you, brother, and thank you to everybody. Thank you again to the community. That's like the biggest thing I want to say, and I feel like I can't wait to be able to say it like the way it deservedly should be said. Maybe in an album or a nice big cake, or maybe I'll knit you guys a sweater. Finally, get off my back.
Love you, man.
I love you guys. I love you, brother.
See ya.